We're here at the CROI in Boston, and we appreciate the opportunity to interview and to discuss with the young investigators that we selected to kind of talk a little bit about your background and who you are and what got you into the field that you're in. So we'll begin, first of all, with Kevin here on my left.
Hi, my name is Kevin Weiss. I'm a graduate student in public health at Emory University, and I'm studying epidemiology. And I think what brought me to the field of HIV epidemiology specifically was the fact that HIV can very much be understood as an intersectional condition, not just reflective of biology, but also reflective of underlying social factors that epidemiology can really help to describe.
And Christina?
Yes, I'm Cristina Rovelli from San Raffaele Hospital in Milan, Italy. And I graduated last September in medical school, and actually I presented my thesis in this conference, and I think that I got interested in this field during my studies in medical school, and I started to go to infectious disease department at my hospital, and I think that it's my main interest in life to work with HIV-infected people and to study more, to understand more this infection.
Mm-hmm. And JC?
Yeah, my name is JC, and I'm at NIH, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, and I'm a postdoc. I did graduate studies in Cleveland at Case Western. And I got into HIV research just coming from a basic science standpoint. I think there's still a lot of questions that people are answering, such as how the disease is pathogenic, how it maintains persistence, and just questions related to cure and treatment. They can all be really answered, and basic science can kind of glean some light on that. So because I've always really liked science, I've thought that it was a good area to go to, because while there's still a lot of research out there, there's always still a lot of unanswered questions.
Mm-hmm. So you all began life as children when this disease was already very mature. This disease was already on the scene many years. You are unaware of the drama that unfolded. You may have seen video or whatever, but this disease was grim in the early days. This is not the case today. So you're still trying to answer the same question we started out with 35 years ago, and with many of the people who began living with this disease 35 years ago. So right now, the work that you're doing, I think, you're basically representing how many other young investigators? There's hundreds of you here. And each of you were presenting your posters at the conference. We didn't used to do that in the old days. The old guy or gal from the conference, from the academic institution or NIH, whatever, would be the lead author. They're switching that around. We're not going to be here. They're not going to be here. You have to take over. So you have to jump in and fill those shoes. They're big shoes, but you're going to have to get the money to run the research. So this is a tall order. So you got to. That's why we're doing this, because we're looking to bring the sharpest and the smartest people in to fill the shoes of some very big people that have done good work over the years. So you all seem to be very energized about the work you're doing. Each of you tell us about what if you can bring it down to lay terms, because our audience is mostly community and some low end, it'd be like case managers and nurses and so forth. So give us the sweet and skinny on your work. If you want to start with you, Kevin.
Sure. So I was working in Bangkok at a research clinic run by the CDC, and I was interested in describing the accessibility to HIV testing clinics for primarily men who have sex with men, but also some transgender women. And what we ended up finding is that the men in this particular group, who were a bunch of anonymous voluntary counseling and testing clients, were traveling large distances to go to one particular clinic, which is one of the longer established clinics for MSM in the city of Bangkok. And from the qualitative work that supported this more spatial analysis, the distance-based analysis, what we were finding is that the men were identifying the fact that this clinic had a community advisory board, was well integrated in the MSM community in Bangkok, and that in itself was a positive for them and why they chose to access this clinic in addition to some other things we considered. But that was probably the most interesting finding.
And the idea that you're expressing what is today, that same place 20 years ago would have been in disarray and confusion and despair. Much the way it was for us 35 years ago as it became to improve in our country. It's slowly, and now it's doing very well. And yes, it's not, we're not doing the 90-90-90 in every place, but we are doing better, and that's very important. It'd be nice if we can annihilate this disease just on prevention aspects. So Christina?
My work is about HPV in HIV-infected patients, male patients, and actually it's a kind of new field that has been exploring this year, these years, since this is a recent problem that HIV-infected people have this increased risk of developing HPV-related diseases. And so my work is directed to men, not to women. And especially we want to understand if there are risk factors linked to the development of lesion in anal area. And so it's, however, it's a bit new, I can say, and it's a very interesting field to explore, I think.
Thank you. And JC?
Well, just like talking about the historical perspective coming from a basic science standpoint, it's interesting to see how that has evolved as, researchers over the years from the mid-'80s to now have understood, why HIV disease is pathogenic. I think it first started off with the virus as being the main driver of disease pathogenesis, but further along that's evolved that we know really one of the biggest drivers is immune activation, and a big determinant of immune activation is tissue damage that occurs within the gut, that occurs in very early disease course and is sustained throughout the chronic phase. And so what my research is focused on is kind of understanding the mechanisms that maintain the gut and how they're disrupted in HIV disease. And we know that HIV it's primarily a disease of the tissues. Viral replication, the majority of it will happen in lymphoid tissues and also within the gut. So because of this, we're working with non-human primates, and because tissue access is very easy, and from a treatment perspective, you can do therapies that you might not otherwise be able to do in human studies. So right now we're just characterizing certain subsets of cells that are helpful in maintaining the gut and seeing how they're dysfunctional.
And how to make them more functional?
Yeah. That's right now we're kind of at a stage of just characterizing how they break down. But by understanding the mechanisms in which they're lost or which they're dysfunctional, we hope to formulate some interventions for those in the future.
A little backwards engineering.
Yeah.
It is really funny to hear you say this. It's like, you're coming into this with a whole new perspective and a whole new look at life, so to speak. And the fact was that if you were around for the past 35 years, which you weren't, you would have heard, it's the virus, stupid. It's immunologically driven. And it's like back and forth with this. Every conference, it was like the virologist would be on top, then the immunologist. It was the CD4s and the CD8s, and and so. But it's great to see people like yourself champion the issue and work at it and prove it. That's what it's about. It's about the research. And I mean, I have people that all the time will come to me and say, well, I thought we answered that question. Well, we answered it, but there's always the things that are brought by you to the science today is what we know in between what happened day one and now. So when someone like yourself brings a new idea, you're bringing it with what you know about the science today. And there's a lot, and it's always evolving. I mean, it's always new stuff. Sometimes a lot of the folks that were there from day one, oh, we tried that. Well, then they think, oh, wait, we tried it based upon what we knew then, not what we accumulatively know now. So that's the difference between the research that you guys do and what's in your head, as opposed to what an old codger like me and others would be thinking about. You know, we dismiss things out of hand sometimes. I don't know that people do that. I know that I do. So what are the biggest challenges? We're just going to go through that with all of you that you faced in your work that you're doing and or process in becoming who you want to be.
That's a good question. I think on my end, being more on the data collection end of piece, it's just what we're asking of participants, what participants feel comfortable answering, and what we're able to ask and glean in terms of new information that might lead to new ideas. And I think as a young investigator working with other folks who are just coming into the field, it's understanding how far the field has come in the last 35 years and what still needs to be asked and what can feasibly be asked of participants who may have been giving of their time and perhaps of their body for many years at this point.
We used to everyone was altruistic and they'd come forward, they'd say, I want to do it. It may not help you, that's okay. It'll be helping somebody down the line. Altruism isn't dead, but we have to make sure we don't kill it. Exactly. And that we don't make sure, we make sure we keep it alive. So we have to be thoughtful about how we do the informed consents and make sure that people are given that. But we also have to make sure that people understand that there is the need, especially now we're talking about cure research. This is going to take people off treatment for a long time, and we're not saying that that's dangerous. It's just that we have to monitor people and make sure that they're okay with that and that they're not slipping down the wrong pathway. But these are the things that, like you're saying, you have to ask people not only the questions you got to be sensitive to them, but also the science that you ask them to bring on board that they have to do and things they have to perform.
Absolutely.
So, Christina, what's your challenges?
My challenges, I think, that are to understand more those related disease, HIV-related disease, and because they are one of the main fields that has to be investigated in our new era, I can say. Because maybe before the most important problem was to try to cure AIDS defining events, I can say. Now there are many more diseases that are emerging and that have to be investigated, I think.
We used to call the conference is called the opportunistic infections, is
Exactly.
in there. That is not gone away, but it is really, except for a few people that are not able to go to undetectable, that they can still have KS and among other things. But it's mostly comorbidities now that we have to evaluate. And so I look at trying to do panels on specific areas of work, and it's almost daunting to think I have to do cardiovascular, bone, the gut issues and so forth. I mean, it goes on and on, neurologic. And then you have to cover the areas of the folks who are involved in this. Now that we've had a big talk on transgender this time, which was never really covered before. Or I shouldn't say never, but not very well at all. Women's issues are always never really covered as well as they should be. Then there's the MSM. So there's a lot to cover if you want to specialize on it. But we do, and you can see all in the poster sessions, there's 2 floors of posters, and there's a lot of categories there. And within them, there's breakdowns, especially within comorbidities, like you said. So it's a lot to that. So, JC, what's your...
I would say keeping a large perspective. The big questions in HIV research these days you know, whether cure-related or just better treatments. You know, sometimes for me, coming from a basic science standpoint, you know, everyone in research, they kind of have their own niche, and it's easy to kind of get very focused on the day-to-day things of, you know, just experiments, you know, making a certain story to put this publication together. But, you know, you really, sometimes it's good to step back and just ask, you know, well, why are you, you know, what's the greater goal? Why are you asking these questions? And so, you know, getting the larger perspective is really helpful. You know, at times, you know, sometimes I have to be aware of that to you know, do that and come at things in that direction.
If you go to the IS meeting, which is a lot more social interventions and so forth, and you know, organizational, it's huge, and you really do see the face of AIDS and the folks who are really charged up to be, and they become there to get refueled, because when you come to a conference like that, you feed off the energy of everyone in the room. But the important thing is that I think, this is the way I think, that you should have that sense of purpose. And why are you doing this, and for who? You're doing it for the human cause. So even though you're working in macaques or animal models, whatever, it's and I worry about that people become too humdrum about their, you know, they should all feel that someday you may be a small piece of the cure, or a small piece of something that improves lives in a very dramatic way. But incremental pieces are very important. So basic science it may be very basic and very early in the stage of development, but it's all piece of the science. So what are some of the, let's end it with the things that you found most gratifying with your work.
I think on my end, just the opportunity to talk to folks who are utilizing these counseling and testing services, some of whom are HIV positive, some of whom are still HIV seronegative, and to take their hopes and to understand what they're hopeful for from the research on our end, both the lab and both an epi standpoint, and just to understand that, like you've already spoken about, it's translating those hopes, translating the desire to help someone, offering of themselves into practical meaning, into clinical findings, into lab findings that can actually impact people. And I think that's what drives me to continue to do so. And I think that a similar goal and a similar hope is shared by all of those affected by HIV and infected by HIV.
For me, the most grateful thing was to work with this population, particular population, and to try to understand them and understand also their problem and their fear about what was happening, let's say. And it was a very interesting field to explore because, like I said before, it is new, and so it is very interesting to be a part of something that is developing to maybe to gain also a vaccine for male patients, for example, and I think that is really great.
No, it's good. It's good. JC?
For me, probably as an immunologist, just the simple discovering something that is new. You know, some of the research you gain insight on, you know, particular immune process or you know, particular way of how HIV interacts with the host. You know, sort of discovering something and knowing that really you are the only one that knows that, you know, is really, really cool.
Yeah, I spoke with John Coffin, and he gave me a reflection on his old days, way back. You know, this is an older gentleman, a great scientist, and he's on the committee of the CROI. But it is interesting to see how people, and there will be a day when you'll be old and gray, and hopefully the cure will have happened 10 years before that. But we all hope that you're a part of it, because you will likely be around for it, in my guess. I hope and I imagine that many, if not all, of the other young investigators are much like you, and we invite other folks who are out there and watching this in their teens and their school years and high school or whatever, may want to emulate what you're doing and saying, this is for me. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.